It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And this week, we're looking at Daredevil's Netflix continuity in the MCU.
Oh, nothing more I'd like to talk about than the weeds of is it or is it MCU?
We might actually have a definitive answer after a little video clip in our show notes. We'll talk about that pretty much almost top of the show. Sony disappoints us yet again with, I guess, Marvel character reboot announcements.
No, they'd never do that, Chris.
They did.
That is not in their history. That's not in their culture.
We are.
I'm surprised.
We are a month away from Madam Web, Mike, and if that's not a kick in the
God.
face, I don't know what is. So,
it's weird to be about a month away from the live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then also Madam Web. It's like, what is February gonna do to us?
Yeah. It's gonna be a while. I actually just went up to see if I could see if I could even pre-order these tickets yet, Mike, just now, and I was like, ooh, maybe they're on here for the 15, 16. But Peppa Pig's Cinema Party is the week of this, and I can buy tickets for it, but I cannot buy tickets for Madam Web yet. So can't wait to see the popcorn vessel. Cross fingers. James Gunn is working on Peacemaker Season 2, and we'll give you a little bit of an update of that at the end of the show and more.
Speaking of popcorn buckets, I sent this over to you, Chris, because I was surprised. If you don't know, listeners, Chris and I have an affinity of, I don't know, not really owning, but we just think.
I've got a small collection, but they're not all of them. But we like to look at them. We like to discuss them.
I like the challenge of the merchandising department of how do we turn this movie into an object that can hold popcorn. And I was tickled to see that Wonka's was his hat. It's just like a turned over hat. I'm sure it's plastic. It's got to be plastic if they're putting popcorn in. I was like, oh, it's just Timothée Chalamet's hat. But I didn't look up the scale of it, though. So I'm hoping it's one that you could put on your head afterwards. You finish your popcorn, and then after the movie's over, you put it on your head.
I'm looking at it. It's a Cinemark product, so it's available on there. It's a chocolate hat, if you will. It's a chocolate cover with gold foil. It's 85 ounces, so if you've got a smaller head, it could probably work for you. But if you look at AMC, they actually have his briefcase as a popcorn tin, his lunchbox.
Whoa, hold on, AMC Wonka bucket.
I'm going to link it to you.
I got it. I got it. I found it.
It opens up.
Okay, it's interesting. AMC went tin, Cinemark went hat.
Yep.
Oh, it opens up like Indian in the cupboard.
a little bit. It's a little bit. Is apparently his lunchbox in there, but absolutely, I love a good popcorn vessel, Mike, especially if it lights up. But I will not turn it on in the theater. I will do everyone a favor and not turn it on in the theater.
Oh God, yeah, that's just unless you're doing something like the Eras tour, like a concert.
Oh
then,
my God, I was there for that. I don't want to hear about it, but go on.
I just I'm on the AMC theaters listing for the product where I can buy it.
Yep.
And it says $19.99. I gotta imagine that it costs more at the AMC because you got to pay for the popcorn that goes in it, right?
It's about the same. You actually.
Oh wow.
So
I'm losing money if I buy it on the internet, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I'll get free popcorn if I go to the theater to get it.
The one, the big buck popcorn. But AMC, they did the. I had to order the Thor one, the Love and Thunder, the cracked hammer 10 from AMC, and it was the same price if I was in theater to buy it. So it was comparable.
It is funny. This listing also has in bold as a bullet point, shipping mid-December 2023, which means this got listed ahead of time, and they're like, we're going to have a rush of orders for this briefcase 10. We better put a warning on there. This ain't no 2-day shipping. Yeah. You're going to have to wait till December to get your popcorn 10.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. A lot of stores do that. Well, I'll talk about it here. But if you go back, there's an Aquaman, if you click on the movie merchandise link on their website, Mike, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom electroplated popcorn tub and cap combo. It's the gold metal fish scales and his green plastic underwear as one big set here for $30.
Okay, so I think we are like one step away from synergizing with Stanley tumblers here.
Oh God!
I mean,
Oh, no.
people. I've already seen the videos of people rushing Targets to get that Valentine's Day colored tumbler. I mean, imagine like an exclusive like Deadpool Stanley tumbler. It's got, I don't know what it's got on it, his face, or if it's just a little bit more subtle.
I'm out. I'm not even getting it. Not even going down that road.
Yeah, there you go. That's my prediction for the year. I don't know if Stanley Tumbler, I think they already do maybe some merchandising, but I mean, they're at the height of their powers right now. So I think they need to start merchandising with movies.
I'm all for a good fad, but like, my wife has a Stanley from last year, and it never fits into the cup holder in the cars. And I'm like, why do you bring this in the fucking car if it's not going to fit in the cup holders? She's like, well, I need my water. I'm like, you have other ones that fit in here. Have a to-go cup and leave this.
Chris, she needs her water.
She can have water. She can have water in a cup that fits the cup holders. I'm like, this is driving me nuts. But
you know what? You know how we've talked about off mic about how the access to things like Apple CarPlay is totally influencing people's decisions to buy cars or not.
Yep.
Like, I bet that is, for some people out there, they show up to the car lot, they test drive, and they're like, if this Stanley Tumbler does not fit in the cup holder, I ain't getting this car. I guarantee that has happened once, and the salesperson is just over there like losing their mind. Like, are you telling me we were like 2 seconds away from signing this paperwork, but you had to put that in the cup holder?
They probably just said, okay, well, we actually have a bigger car. The increase of upper mid-size SUVs is due to the Stanley Tumbler cup holders in there.
Yeah, we need that like emblem ensconced on the back of vehicles, right under, like, if it's like a luxury model, what number, have like the Stanley logo underneath.
Put it on the windshield next to the Sirius XM logo.
The there you go.
That way it's right next to the. That way when you walk up to it, you're like, oh. Yeah, I know what I'm getting into.
And we're onto something. Yeah. 2024, our brains are firing on all cylinders, man.
Yeah,
all the neurons are getting where they need to go.
And I'm scared of that. I'm absolutely horrified by this. But that's fine. We're having fun, and it's all good here. We're going to talk about some stuff here, but I want to talk about, I'm not putting the notes here, but I want to talk to you about a resurgence of mine, Mike, that has happened in the past 3 months. And that is Digimon. And I don't.
Oh my God! I wasn't expecting this.
Yep,
Wow.
I don't know what your knowledge and experience with Digimon is, Mike, but I
have some.
Of the Digimon pets, like the Digipets.
Oh, just knowledge in general.
Okay. So I grew up watching the original anime show, right? Fox Kids era, stuff like that. My brother and I we had some of the season 2 Digivices, the ones you carry. It's essentially like a Tamagotchi, but you can battle them. Bandai has come out in the past like 2 years, 3 years. Essentially a Fitbit bracelet for Digimon now, rather than carrying around the little blocks. To do stats, they essentially have taken a Fitbit form factor, if you will. And
I'm googling it now. I see.
Yeah, so the Vital Hero or the Vital Bracelet BE. So you essentially get a Digimon on like a little SD card, and you load it in, and you train it and walk it, and you have all sorts of Digimon on your bracelet you can carry with you now, rather than like having like the one pet at a time, if you will. So my brother and I have both bought a couple of these bracelets and a couple of these cards, and we were like, we're gonna train him up, and then we're gonna fight him here next time I see him in like the next 6 months, because we see every 6 months. But like, I'm just like wow, this is the fact that Digimon are still around, great, because they were essentially what people thought was like a great value Pokemon, if you will. And they kind of are. They have their own little rules, but like there's a bunch of video games, they have card games, all sorts of stuff. But I'm very excited to relive some of that late 90s childhood stuff. Now that I have money to buy what I want.
The single best part of this device, I love how you load the Pokemon, or sorry, the Digimon onto your like Fitbit device through like a little USB drive, because that's exactly the kind of stuff I loved when I kind of watched these different animes growing up. Like Metabots had a similar thing where there's always like an accessory, something that you got to plug in, something tactile. I mean, because
How you
I mean,
sell
I'm not
toys
trying
without it?
to. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, and also the hilarious part is they 100% do not need to be on a flash drive. There's a million different ways. Like, I'm sure the file size of this thing is
Oh, so
microscopic.
people
They
people
could
have already
load
cracked
all of the.
these. Like you can
Yeah.
like create your own. I'm like, yeah, that's great, even better. So
Yeah,
absolutely.
they could have just preloaded every single Digimon on
Mm.
these devices and just locked them away
Well,
from you.
they
And
have to be right. They don't have they have to have like the sprites and everything. Like the watch can't handle new stuff anyway. Once you like buy one or make one, except for
Mhm.
the new ones. But what's even crazy? These bracelets, the newer versions, have like Batman crossovers. You can buy a Batman character to load into this bracelet now, Mike, because they've done so much. Like they were so popular, they're like cross promote everything. My Hero Academia heroes, like I said, Batman, Demon Slayer ones are coming out. Even I'm like, this is just like this is taking off for the
man,
fitness era, if you will.
there was this amazing era back in, I want to say, like early 2000s. It was kind of like that hit clip
Oh yeah,
generation,
yeah.
right? It was the hit clips. It was there was these like fighters where like your little handheld device came with like a barcode scanner, and the barcode that you scanned would give you like either like power
That's
ups or monsters.
Monster Rancher is what you're thinking of.
Was that Monster Rancher? I wasn't sure what it was
Monster
called.
Rancher had the barcode scanner and it also had a CD scanner. Star Wars had the little things that you like put the chips in, where it had like the voice lines.
It was just like this amazing time of technology where these components had just gotten small enough to be portable and cheap enough to be, toys that you could give to your children.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. And then that's like the smartphone, kind of the rudimentary like Palm Pilot smartphone, BlackBerry, kind of all came like, a few years after that and kind of wiped out all of this version of technology.
Well,
But like, what an amazing time to be alive.
It was it's all phases, right? Like again, I've been cleaning my Nintendo 64. I have a clear purple controller. Do you remember when everything was clear plastic?
Oh yeah.
Like everything came in clear plastic, and that kind of came and went. The music video game genre, like Rock Band Guitar Hero, had a rise and a fall as well. So, but Digimon, these bracelets, they're for me my new fad. But I think it's really cool that again, it promotes exercise, right? Because it is essentially a Fitbit. It matches your steps, and you can still relive the old Digimon stuff without having to clip on a little Digimon like huge block on your belt and then automatically be judged the second you're walking through. But I was like, I just want to say, if whoever went through the Digimon era and is living that, I'm absolutely loving it again. So we're in the Renaissance, Mike. But I'll let you jump into some of the stuff. I think you talked a little bit. Yeah, I think you've talked about both of these before, but let's hear round twos.
The first one's not new, but I did just finish Blue Eye Samurai between the last episode of our podcast and this one, and it's amazing. It's so good. Everything that I said last week still stands, but they nailed this first season. I haven't looked up if it's getting a second season or not, but I got to imagine out of all of the like best of TV lists of 2023 that it ended up on, Netflix, do the right thing if you haven't done it already. Give us a second season of Blue Eye Samurai. I don't say this to knock animation down a peg or two in general as a medium, but I feel like usually it's harder to find really well told stories in animation because you kind of got to get lucky in a sense of you need somebody with an animation background that is also good at writing or identifying good writing, and then they create an animation project that's great like that. And I feel like usually when you have standalone scripts that are really, really good, they typically get elevated to live action. They climb that ladder where it doesn't necessarily have to be animated. But this is just this great confluence of great writing, great animation, and it's all working well together. There was one thing that if I had to pick out like a pet peeve, and this is kind of something I've talked about a little bit whenever we bring up Kingsman 2, where sometimes I feel like they stretch the realm of the reality that they've established, where you're seeing some maybe unrealistic, feats of strength. But I looked past those and I enjoyed the story overall. But Chris, you got to watch Blue Eye Samurai right now. It's so good. You can burn through those 8 episodes pretty quickly, and I think you'll really, really like it.
Okay.
And then next up,
yeah. So you got another one here.
we have The Fall of the House of Usher. This show kind of picked up at the tail end of last year. It's from Mike Flanagan, who did a lot of these other really popular Netflix shows like Haunting of Hill House, and I can't think of the two other ones. Midnight Mass is one, but usually he kind of delves into like the spooky, creepy, scary, like get ready, it's October, Netflix is dropping a new show of his. The Fall of the House of Usher is an interesting mix of, like, I would say Succession and American Horror Story. So you still get the jump scares occasionally, but this is more of like a family drama of watching basically rich people fall to their doom, which is really satisfying. So if you liked watching Succession, but also kind of wish that, oh, maybe Roman would die after he did something really, really shitty, I would recommend The Fall of the House of Usher. We haven't finished it yet. We're still moving through it, but it's been pretty fun. I'd go check it out if you like that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what I've been watching this week, Chris.
Yeah, and that again, for people who don't, that has stars Mark Hamill in a very creepy lawyer role.
I was surprised. I haven't seen him in a minute, and like visually seen him. We hear him all the time, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. He's playing a great skeezy lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so let's jump in. You mentioned that, again, both that was a big show last year, but what we have here, I was able to gather the list of the top 2023 streaming shows, Mike, for the year. And at the top of this, surprisingly, two shows that we both reported on, and that's The Mandalorian was number 1, and Loki season 2 was number 2 of the most streamed shows last year. Which pretty good. I think that's a good indicator. Say what you want about Mandalorian season 3, which I actually forgot was last year. Like, that feels like forever ago, right? When Mandalorian was on. Loki Fresh. That's really, really, really solid. Moving down the list, we have Ted Lasso, Only Murders in the Building, which I think season 4 is coming up pretty soon on that too. I think. Black Mirror, which had a return. Number 7 is Secret Invasion, which means a lot of people watch this. Not saying it's good. Views doesn't indicate quality, right? But a lot of people tuned in to Secret Invasion because we got Samuel L. Jackson return, and obviously a Marvel property is enough to get some advertising out there. Followed by The Bear, and then Ahsoka, number 9. So even though the character, I would say, is like a niche audience, not niche, but like a smaller, like a subset of fans of Star Wars, right? Still a lot of people outside of that tuned in to watch this and make it number 9. And then number 10 is The Witcher, which I think was the last season with Henry Cavill this year, right? So the next 2 seasons are the younger Hemsworth brother in that role.
Yeah. I would say the benefit that maybe some of these poorer seasons have this year is it was either kind of the first poor season of a show, or they were short in a way. So for me, even though I wasn't really digging Mandalorian all that much, or maybe even Ahsoka on some level, I'm still going to watch them because it's only 8 episodes. I can burn through them pretty quickly. The bigger indicator would be if these would all be getting more seasons like this calendar year, right? If the last season of The Mandalorian burned a couple people, they might not be coming back. But I'm most surprised probably to see The Bear on here at number 8. I think that's really great because the show is so good. But out of all of these other shows on the list that are all kind of like powerhouses, I feel like The Bear is sitting there at number 8 just strictly because word of mouth and it's so good.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of big names in the show,
Well, and I would also say it's a second season, right? Benefit of if you didn't tune in the first one, word of mouth got you in. You have essentially 2 seasons to burn through this year if you wanted to. So that's a plus. But yeah, I'd say Black Mirror is a very short episode season, right? There's only 3 episodes in Black Mirror, right? Is that? Yeah,
I'm not sure. I haven't watched Black Mirror in a minute.
I'm gonna pull it up here. It was 5 episodes this year, so I know the last one was 3. It's a shorter show as well, but still there. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of an indicator. What I like to see here, Mike, we have a lot of variety in the streaming channels on this top 10. Like, there's Disney Plus, there's Apple TV, there's Netflix, there's Hulu. There's other ones. If you look at the full 30 list from Yahoo, but it's not just one streaming provider, right? Providing all the hits. Like you have 4 choices here providing really good stuff. So,
And not surprised, no Peacock, Paramount Plus,
Max,
listed on there, or Amazon Prime.
Max, I'm surprised is not on the top 10, but at the same time, simply for The Last of Us, right? But I mean, I couldn't tell you a Max exclusive show. Was that Succession? Succession and The Last of Us were maybe the two Max shows this year.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe those are sitting at like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Honestly, shocked to see Witcher there at number 10. Yeah. I haven't heard anybody talk about The Witcher.
Well, these are not
out past season 1.
These are not U.S. These are global numbers. I'm pretty sure. And The Witcher's got a huge European fan base since the books are over there. So I think that would pull The Witcher up a little bit compared to what because I didn't even know the season came out this year, Mike. Like. I had to go verify that to make sure. I'm like, is this the new one with Liam Hemsworth or is this the old one with Henry Cavill? So I had to go look it up. But I think it's great, and that's some good stats to have at the end of the year. Hopefully, we get some more permanent ones later. Moving on, this week I believe it's Tuesday, which is a weird day. Mike, Echo drops on Disney Plus, all 5 episodes all at once here, and we were talking a little bit before the show started, but this is. To me, Mike, I would say that one of the heaviest marketing pushes for a show on Disney Plus in a long time. Like, I don't even think Loki put out this much content, despite they having a McDonald's meal with a special sauce, but that didn't really go anywhere.
I was saying that this show could very well be good, right? You know, a good writer can make anything entertaining, right? But the marketing seems so intense and over the top compared to everything else that we've gotten from like Marvel. It's like there's grunge textures everywhere. It's the first time in a long time I've actually heard like a narrator on a trailer. It's just, there's this dude, the gravelly voice that pops up at the end. It's just like all episodes streaming. You're not gonna be ready for this type of thing.
I realize why that is, and that's because the main character is mute, so they can't have her saying anything. I was like, oh, when your main character can't do the voice, kind of like how like Tom Hiddleston did all his like the commercials. Like, how do you do that? Because a lot of people are like, she was in here. She said like one line, but it was like in subtitles, right? Like in text on the screen. I'm like, oh, a lot of this is probably going to be a quieter show overall because she can't talk in this show. So I
mean, that's a theory that could hold some water, but either way, it just seems like the marketing is overcompensating. Maybe not necessarily for quality, but for interest that they're getting back.
Still putting an asterisk on it. This is outside of Marvel's new TV writing rules, right? This was done with the old batch of episodes during the pandemic, right? Like after her debut in Hawkeye, they made it kind of like a movie. They've tried to fix it in post. We were only getting 5 episodes instead of 6. Which a lot of people have speculated they've edited out an entire episode or edited it down to get the 5. Could be better that way. But the new teaser we've linked here includes footage and dialogue from the Netflix's Daredevil series with the Kingpin, including when he was a boy, right? As we all know, his favorite line from the show, when I was a boy. But it shows him in there. It's got lines. It's got clips from it. So I believe the producer, one of the producers, I think Brad Windenbaum or something like that. He's out doing interviews right now because of this and What If. It's pretty much said that Netflix's Daredevil is canonical in the quote unquote sacred timeline now. So I think we're not going to have any confusion. They're not cherry pick anything. I think going forward is all going to be like, yeah, that show's in part of this kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like I have. There's 2 mics in my head, in my head, on my different shoulders, trying to figure out how to, approach this. The I would say the more sane mic is going. It doesn't matter whether or not it's canonical. This was never in the grand plan all along anyway. Jeff Loeb was the one that was controlling kind of the Netflix side of things. This was never like, Kevin Feige's purview. So they're just trying to figure out the best way to problem solve this overlap of like, well, how much do we actually want to reboot this character? People really liked that Daredevil show and watched it, so it's probably a little too hard to scrub from the face of the earth. So let's just go ahead and call it canonical, and then we'll deal with it down the line, right? That's more than likely what's actually happening, right? And then there's another part of me that's just like, no, it can't be right. I'm sure there's tons of stuff in that Daredevil Netflix show that doesn't make any sense, but we didn't see that happen there, and we didn't see that happen there, and this doesn't work. And like, there's no there's no reason for me to fall into that side of my personality. But yeah, I mean, I guess some producer over there can just like say it's true, and then it becomes true. But I feel bad for whatever like Marvel timeline book editor that has to put out the next volume trying to figure out how to put all this stuff together,
Yeah, and again, there's no flawlessness in everything anyway, right? Remember when like Spider-Man was at Homecoming had the wrong years by a long shot, and they had to be like, no, this was wrong because Sony put that out. So absolutely, I mean, to me it doesn't matter at the end of the day, but like it's good that they can, like, if they want to reference scenes from that, they want to pull footage from that to say that, this, do you remember this? Like this action influenced this version of Kingpin, and this is what we're seeing. I think that's perfectly fine. You can watch.
I mean,
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I suppose the thing that could shoot them in the foot a little bit is, I guess if you're just talking about, Daredevil and his supporting characters, his friends, his business and everything, okay, and we've already had, rumors that Jessica Jones could come back. Okay, that's all fine. But what are we going to do about this looming hanging chad of Iron Fist, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure that maybe that's something that they would like to address again in the future, right? But how would how could they do that now? I mean, would it just be like a typical recast? I mean, it's not the biggest problem in the world, but if you are drawing a line that's saying Netflix's Daredevil is sacred timeline, that means you got to commit to everything that happened into it.
Well, maybe not. I mean, they can pick and choose. Like, I'm not going to say the Defenders is canonical. If they want to say Daredevil was, but not the Defenders, that's fine, because none of that made sense anyway. But to answer your thing, Iron Fist it's a title more than a person. If they can pick someone else who's a new Iron Fist, it doesn't have to be Danny Rand anymore, right? Like, oh, this is the new Iron Fist. What happened to Danny? I don't know. He died. We never saw him again. He shot himself with those magic bullets at the end of season 2.
Poor Danny.
Yeah, but it's fine. I mean, again, we don't know anything until we watch it, and we have this, and then we also have what we'll talk about in a second, Daredevil board game. But the producer also mentioned that the owner of the new Avengers Tower will be revealed soon. Now, soon is in maybe Echo, or soon is in something else. The only thing I can think of, some other show or movie this year, but like, cool, right?
Yeah, I guess it would either be, I mean, what is the timeline of soon? Because the only thing soon would be Echo. I mean,
well, there's Echo, and then I think what's Agatha. I don't think Agatha will have anything to do with it. What's it?
Yeah, Agatha buys the whole building.
Yeah, I don't think she does. I don't think it's any of those characters. But I don't think everyone's like Wilson Fisk. The Kingpin bought the tower, and that's what everyone's theorizing here. And while it may not be true, this guy knows what people are looking for. I think, like, this is like, that was an article in and of itself I saw this week. The new Avengers Tower will be revealed. And then it was like soon, and we're like, okay, what does that mean? What show? Does it even matter at the end of the day? Who owns the big tower in New York going forward? But I don't know. To me, if anything, if this guy's saying, do you think Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, will own that tower by the time we get to Daredevil Born Again?
Well, I mean, see, here's the problem I'm running into is I never finished that final season of Daredevil because I was under the impression I didn't have to. It was a dying portion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I didn't have to commit to it anymore. Yeah. So I don't really know how it ends, but I remember Kingpin like trying to get out of jail and being under house arrest. So does he get out? He could, but where does he get the funds to buy a whole skyscraper? Well, I'm wondering.
Skip that. Go right. Hawkeye is where we would say we would just pick up where it is. Right. Hawkeye. He was out in Hawkeye. He was laundering money or funding money to was it Kate Bishop's dad or mom? Right. Remember working with her mom, like with money and stuff like that. So obviously he's still king of the underbelly, if you will, or we at least has started to be that. We've heard the rumors because it was in the comic books. Maybe he runs for mayor of New York because he's running like something anti-vigilante. I don't know. He'll find the money. They'll explain it. I don't think we have to worry about it. I've not even seen Daredevil season 3. I didn't even touch it. So you're actually ahead of me in some of those regards. But you know, based on what we know, it could be him. It doesn't have to be, but that's what they're leaning into. But we'll go ahead and jump into our next topic, which is actually Daredevil Born Again, because Vincent D'Onofrio said the series is set to resume production in a few weeks. So possibly, you know, February, maybe early March at the latest. So it sounds like they've kind of got their new team together. They've solved the problems. They've got a plan going forward. And one of the things that kind of came out of this, and we've heard this before, but you know, it was reiterated that the character Muse is rumored to be the main villain. And as you can tell from Mike's thumbnail this week, do you have a question for this, Mike?
Yes. Who is this character?
Who is Muse? So Muse is a very comic book wise, a very minor villain from 2016. It was created in 2016. He is essentially a serial killer a street artist / serial killer. He takes the blood of his victims and uses their blood to create art in the city, which is definitely an interesting take. The other part of this, he's immune to Daredevil's enhanced senses in the comic books. So like Daredevil, like, you know, he's not faster. Daredevil's like he can't pick up on him as well as other like normal people. So we never know his true name. We never know his exact origins or his exact power set in the comic books, because he died you know, a couple years later in the books. But he has an affiliation with Inhumans. He came around when the Inhumans were big in the comic books, and he was killing the Inhumans using their blood to like targeting specifically to make art. So I don't think he's going to be Inhuman, but I don't know if he's going to actually have any quote unquote powers at this point.
Yeah, that's my big issue that I harp on all the time. Of if you're going to have a character with powers, you better find a way to explain it to me within the MCU, or I'm going to get very mad. So if they
don't care about you.
Going
they
down,
don't care if you're mad.
If they're going down this maybe mutant, you know, rabbit hole,
he's not a mutant.
mutant.
Yeah, he could be a mutant. The worst part about this character, even after researching it, and I know who he was from his looks, no idea, like, even like if he has a power set other than just maybe he's quieter than a normal person. I don't know.
He's unperceivable,
yeah,
in a way, possibly. It's a cool idea. I mean, if we're talking about serial killer, I feel like it fits the dark, serious vibe that we've kind of been promised with Daredevil Born Again. So I got to imagine, though, if they're doing what was the episode order 26, I think is what was floating
18,
out there in the world. 18.
Yeah,
You're gonna need more than one villain to support 18 episodes, or you just get a really annoying kind of CW style of every 3 episodes the villain shows up and gets away, you know.
And that's why I think I think we know this, you know, Kingpin's coming back, so I think it's not the full thing is the Kingpin, but like, you know, we know that it was originally set up as like a legal procedural show, and that was where it got rebooted and started over again. So if they're doing the Kingpin as maybe getting, you know, becoming the mayor, he's running against vigilantes, but like at the same time Daredevil is trying to be a lawyer, he's trying to be a vigilante. There's also serial killers. There's going to be obviously more than one, but if he's the main villain, he could be running the cases, like, why is there a serial killer out here in New York, and how do we stop him if I can't figure out who he is along the way. We've heard rumors that I don't think Spider-Man will show up in here. I think it was the other way, where Daredevil will show up in the Spider-Man movie, but you know, we could see some. Again, we mentioned the Punisher showing up at one point, I think, right? Remember, that was a rumor. John Bernthal coming back, being a vigilante / trying to stop serial killers. It lines up with that character, so I'm interested to see what they do with it. I think it's got potential. I have a quote here from Mark Jobst, who worked on Daredevil's Netflix show, and he says that you know, Charlie Cox, D'Onofrio, and Bernthal would not keep going or sign back on to the series again if they didn't feel it was worth the journey. He's like, they as actors, he knows that they don't need a paycheck. They can do whatever they want to do. So he felt confident that the show would be quality rather than just something they signed up for money at the end of the day.
All right.
So I was like, well, that seems, you know, a pretty good, I guess, endorsement without endorsing it directly at the end of the day. So we'll see. Sad news for me, Mike. I guess it's kind of sad. Steven Yeun has apologetically, and that's his words, left the role of Bob Reynolds the Sentry due to scheduling conflicts in the Thunderbolts movie. Now, again, I have to tell you about this. He was never officially announced by Marvel, but he has said he's left the role. So technically, I guess that's like how do you he's officially left it, but he never was officially announced. That's a weird thing out there, right? So we're gonna take it that he was hired to do it. But he says he wants to do a Marvel movie, but his the SAG-AFTRA strikes rescheduled all his productions, so he just can't make it due to scheduling conflict. So
I mean, his career is skyrocketing, right? I would say this is a scenario where he doesn't necessarily need Marvel. I'm sure he was looking forward to a possible paycheck that came out of it, right? But I think this might be better off overall for him.
Well, I mean, I think I can't tell you if it's gonna be better off for him or not. I think this it kind of makes me think this character is a one-off character in this movie, Mike. Like, you know, as much as I love the Century One to live on in the movies, I don't think he would sign a multi-contract film or franchise, right? I think he signed on for a role that was going to live and die in this movie, if you will. Knowing that probably the Void is maybe the villain of this film at the end of the day. But, you know, again, we are in a Marvel's retooling everything. The strikes have rescheduled everything. You know, production schedules. We're gonna be seeing a very light 2024 and probably a heavy 2025 again, right? Because of the 6 month, the writer strike and the actor strike, all shifting everything back 6+ months, if you will. Yeah. So
I mean, that's a pretty interesting theory. I didn't think about that. Yeah, what is the likelihood that a multi-film contract, you know, could be thwarted maybe by another contract? And maybe it can. Maybe it's just all about precedent. Like, yeah, maybe he does have a smaller, like, either indie movie or another streaming series coming up, but those contracts were signed first, and maybe he did have a multi-year contract, multi-film contract signed for Marvel, but you know, you gotta bump. There's nothing he can do about it. He has these other projects that's got to get bumped.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could have possibly just have been one. But you know,
yeah,
I think like the Century kind of has to be in the movie then. If he's bowing out of it, they can't just like push it off to another film.
Yeah, they've said that the movie will. I think he said the movie's staying the same. It's just like, again, he even said, he's like, I've got to do another movie at the same time. It's not possible to make it. I mean, everyone's like, oh, who would you put in there, Chris? I'm like, I don't know. Like, Steven Yeun was not in my list at all for someone to cast as Robert Reynolds. So I think, you know, I trust, if anything, we've always said Marvel has a great casting director and they will cast appropriately for every role. I've never seen a miscast person in Marvel at all. So I believe they will hire someone. Now, does he have to have the Sentry's, like, you know, proportions, the big muscular body, you know, kind of like a Superman? Man, could, or they could use the Robert Reynolds, the smaller, skinnier person, his human persona, if you will. So I can go either way. I trust him to hire the right person, and I'm glad I'm getting the Sentry in a movie. Things I never thought I would get to see, Mike, in my time here. So yeah, it's sad, but obviously, someone did ask me this week when they were on our release schedule, when is Invincible Part 2 coming out? They have not announced that yet. The other Steven Yeun project, right? Invincible season 2, Part 2 has no release date yet. So for those waiting to hear him return, it'll probably be a few months before they come back as well. Moving on into Eyes of Wakanda, the upcoming animated spin-off series on Disney Plus. Apparently the show has been written and worked on since COVID-19, Mike, 2021. The announcement or the transition maybe to animation, maybe more recent, but it was pitched by Todd Harris, who is a longtime storyboard artist, and I would assume probably before lockdown, if you will, if they were working on it during 2020, 2021. He was also Todd Harris has worked as a storyboard artist, such as Brian Andrews, who directed What If. He was a storyboard artist before he directed What If as well. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder where this kind of fits in overall, like visual aesthetically, right? We do have the what if animation style established. They could go that direction, but we've seen some, concept art for that Spider-Man animated show, and that visually looks different. So it could do its own thing, but I got to imagine that a lot of these animated action, I guess cartoons, for lack of a better term, are probably going to be through some sort of like 3D pipeline. It just takes too long to do the 2D animation, I think, with how quickly they want to churn this stuff out.
And I would say they have a lot of models already built for this. After watching What If in What If season 2, like in What If season 2, in there's a King T'Chaka model. There's season 1 there was Black Panther. They can really do some. I think we even saw maybe Wakanda in season 1. So there's opportunities to use that. I also not to discredit X-Men 97 is also using their own animated style, even though it's a continuation of the X-Men show. They're still using a different animation style / pipeline, as you said. And the other show coming up is Marvel Zombies, which is a spinoff of What If. I've not heard if that uses the same art style or not either. So there's a couple opportunities for that. But this Todd Harris, like, why is the storyboard artist pitching and working on stuff, directing stuff? Why is Brian Andrews the storyboard artist working on this? Well, that's exactly how Dave Filoni came to be, right? He was a storyboard artist and worked on storyboards before he got into Avatar: The Last Airbender and then eventually into Star Wars. So it seems to be a great career path for people who are invested in it, right? To work their way through that.
And also a lot of these Marvel shows, I guess they are changing the formula though with their live action stuff. They're kind of just looking for somebody to like shepherd the show through production, and then there's a higher up executive producer that's kind of calling like the bigger shots. So really the person that you need shepherding an animated show is somebody that's familiar with how animation gets made. So it's not too surprising to see these kind of storyboard artists rise up the ranks. But yeah, that is a good thing to mention, that similar Filoni history there.
Yeah, who's now doing live action. I will say, last thing I want to add, I did watch the last episode of What If. I hadn't finished it because it came out last time we recorded. Holy shit, Mike, that's a good episode. Like the culmination of season 2 episode. I will say, I want people to watch it, but I mean, if you want a preliminary visual into what Secret Wars could look like, that's your episode right there. So very fun, very, very excited to do that. So kudos to them. And hopefully season 3 is right around the corner. Armor Wars is a movie coming up. It used to be a show, now it's a movie coming into Marvel. The rumor is that Justin Hammer will return from his Iron Man 2 days to be the villain in this, which makes sense, right? Because he was essentially... Iron Man 2 is not my favorite movie. It's fun to watch. It's got, obviously the AC/DC soundtrack, the invention of War Machine. Justin Hammer played by Sam
Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. Awesome actor, awesome villain, but really goofy story with what he was doing. So if they can turn him around, make him an actual villain, that will be great. He also, Sam Rockwell, voiced Justin Hammer in a What If season 2 episode. So he is apparently open to working with Marvel still after all these years. I would love to see this.
I feel like the best type of character to kind of drop into the MCU right now is any character that's an opportunist, right? There's been so much change in the fictional world on Earth that anybody that wants to take advantage of the situation makes a lot of sense. So I got to imagine Justin Hammer's been doing a lot since we last saw him.
Yeah. Well, he was in jail in what All Hail the King, right? He made a cameo in the when Trevor was broken out by the real 10 rings or whatever. But that was like early Thor, days. What movie was he in? Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3. And honestly, with the passing of Tony at the end of Endgame, the world needs a someone who's in tech and is considered smart. Whether we saw him as smart as an audience or not is not the answer. It's what the world in Marvel thinks he is. So if they're like, oh yeah, he's our great value Tony Stark, let's bring him in here and have some fun with him. So I would love to see him come back to What If. I think he's funny and smart. Not What If, Armor Wars. He was in What If, Mike. I hope you watch it soon so we can talk about it. Avengers 5. This is a rumor, and this is heavily a rumor. By heavily, I mean this is not true at all, but boy, I keep seeing articles on this, and it's just driving me nuts. So I figured we'd touch on it a bit. What was previously Kang Dynasty is now Avengers 5, and it's heavily rumored that actor Coleman Domingo could replace Jonathan Majors if the contract, there's a clause, is activated. One that, like, you cause trouble for us so we can null your contract and hire somebody else to take this role. Because, historically, we're like, no one else can be Kang, but Disney is the biggest studio in the world. They can figure out a way to get out of this pretty easily.
One interesting thing that I found is these promo videos that Jonathan Majors is going to be doing an interview exclusively on ABC's Good Morning America, which is owned by Disney, and he's just going to be it's like just one of those, like, Jonathan Majors joins us Monday, talk about the trial and everything. So, and it's like all somber, the lighting's all darkly lit. You can tell that this was all perfectly manicurely set up by PR reps and everything. It's like, it's all so finessed, right? I don't know what the context of the interview is going to be. I don't know who is and who isn't playing ball, but it's just like, what is happening here and why is it happening on a Disney owned network,
Well, Disney can't say what can go on the networks, then they start getting slapped by the FCC. However, I will tell you, I did watch the clip for it, and pretty much the clip paints him as guilty, which is weird. Like, I don't know why anyone in PR on Jonathan Majors' side would let this clip be the clip they show, because they literally say convicted of assaulting his girlfriend. Like, literally, like, that's the words they say. I'm like, what? Why would you let them do that before the actual interview, rather than, like you mentioned, paint him in an innocent light? They paint him in a very guilty light early on. And then there's like a little clip where he's like wiping a tear away from his eyes, and you're like, oh no, this is not going to be fun. So I cannot wait for all the memes to happen Monday, whenever this comes out.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be lots of crocodile tears.
Yeah, exactly.
Loki crocodile tears.
But yeah, that was my other note. Jonathan Majors will have his first interview on Monday, since everything has happened. So one of the questions the interviewer does ask was like, "Do you think you'll ever work in Hollywood again?" And then I think that's when it cut to the tear, and I'm like, "Oh,
the dramatic."
God. Yeah. So
I mean, obviously he wants to. The only reason he'd put himself in front of the camera after all of this, right, is he wants to, set the record straight, speak for himself. He doesn't want the last thing people seeing about him is in court. So, I mean, I guess I get it from a strategical point of view, but
I just lay low. As someone who has a degree in public relations, I would say lay the fuck low. Like, just like, hey, you know what? We'll take 2 out of 4. Not incidental damages and injury, not purposeful injury, and we're just gonna lay low for a year until something comes out. We can do something new. So, but the interview is Monday. We'll if it's relevant, we'll talk about it next week. If not, but back to the point, if it's a morals clause, I forgot the word morals in there, is activated from Disney, they could recast him. This actor, I think, said something finally today, was like, look, I don't know if there's talks, I'm not part of them. If my agents are talking to them, they're not telling me yet, which I think is, that's good insider knowledge. Like, reps wouldn't tell the actors unless they were like had something pretty solid to go on, right? Like, you don't want to get your clients' hopes up all the time and then shatter them later. So if he is, perfectly fine, they recast him. I trust him. If not, whatever, no big deal. Retool it and move forward, and go down that route. Spider-Man 4, I forget, I'm so excited to revisit Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, after the end of No Way Home, right? He's by himself, no baggage, nobody knows who he is. He's got a red and blue suit in New York, looks great. Apparently John Watts is still not a lock to direct the film on this one, from Sony, and Sony could be looking at director Drew Goddard instead. We have talked about Drew Goddard quite a bit historically, because he did a lot of Daredevil. He created Daredevil for Netflix. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
And then he's got some other. I think his latest project was Bad Times at the El Royale, which, you know, I obviously had a huge cast in it as well. So, I mean, cool if it's him.
Yeah,
I'd rather John Watts come back, but it's fine.
I mean, I never really assumed John Watts would come back either. I mean, if I was a filmmaker that just like crushed it on a Spider-Man trilogy, right? And you ended it on such like a kind of like a perfect kind of like farewell note in a way. I would just take the W and like move on and do the next thing, because I think that kind of was his intention when he was originally kind of like signed up to do the Fantastic Four movie.
Yep.
I think it's just like take the bag, take the money, and go do that, you know, super artistic thing that no one would ever let you make, but now you got the power to make it, you know?
Yeah. He also was part of Sony's plans to do the Sinister Six movie back in 2013. Thankfully, it never came to fruition, and everyone was. But like Drew Goddard, I think it's great. John Watts getting him back would be fantastic. But is that all you want to do for your life as Spider-Man movies? Like, you know, obviously the cash is there because anything Spider-Man brings in $1 billion. But the other part about Drew Goddard, he was actually in a photo, and we didn't talk about this. James Gunn posted a photo of his writer's room from 2023. And Goddard, I think, is in that photo in there. So like he's like got his hands at DC, he's got his hands at Sony, possibly now Marvel with this. But sure, I guess. I mean, I don't know who I'd want to direct a Spider-Man movie, Mike. If someone put me on the spot, like put a gun to my head, who would you say? I'm like, same one, John Watts? No? Okay, well then yeah, this whoever you say is fine, I guess. So
Fresh meat is always a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, because we're going to be kind of kicking off a new chapter, right, in this Tom Holland Spider-Man story. So I think you need a new director.
Yep. I think I don't know. I think my problem with Drew Goddard out the gate is he has history with Sony and Spider-Man with that Sinister Six. So like, as long as Marvel's gives him, or they have good writers, whether it's Marvel or something, and they have good writers and have a good script and they can make it all work, the director, you know, will do a good job. I think he'll do a good job as director, but I'm worried about his Sinister Six history, because Sinister Six back then was something before we did the show we were all worried about, because it sounded like, because we all saw the Amazing Spider-Man 2, right, at the end with the basement. So whatever, but that's fine, because our next bit of news is that kick in the face I was talking about at the beginning of the show, with Sony developing a standalone film for not one but two Spider-Man villains, one being Dr. Octopus. Mike, a standalone Doc Ock film. How does that make you feel?
Oh boy.
This is also will not be Alfred Molina returning from Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man No Way Home.
I assumed it's gonna be some just like Hollywood hunk. I gotta assume, just like all of the other casting that they've done with the villains. Like whenever they get this Sinister Six together, it's just gonna be the hottest six people that exist in Hollywood. The badass thing to do would give us that version from Spider-Verse, the female Doc Ock,
Olivia
you know,
Octavius, yeah.
Yeah, with the kind of like almost more like pneumatic, fluid tubey type of tentacles. They ain't gonna do that. They're not brave enough to put that on the screen. They don't have that type of vision and insight. No, they're gonna give us a guy who was bitten by an octopus in the ocean that now suddenly has the ability to control.
He can talk to sea animals. He can talk to sea. It's their Aquaman is what they're doing here.
Yeah, but like, I've totally divested my thoughts and prayers from this franchise. So I'm just like, yeah, go ahead, do it. I don't care. Just make sure it's dumb and entertaining, because that's all I can really hope for anymore.
Yeah.
So sure, Doc Ock, whatever.
You know, the thing I remember most about Morbius, Mike, is the visuals of the movement, the purple, right, the fluid. If they can make something visually stand out in this movie that doesn't, I will forgive it, you know, for the most part. Like, yes, you're gonna do it no matter whether I say or not, whether I like it or not. But as long as they can do something visually cool, that's fine. My guess also for this is in the next character, or they're building their Sinister Six. We talked about like, oh, they wouldn't reuse anybody they've done recently. Well, we were wrong. Sony looked at us and said, you're wrong. We're going to do it anyway. We're going to redo Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, Otto Octavius, and do it that way. I agree that, you know, I like the idea of the shift, you know, going to that. But what I would like to see is similar to that character is, you know, the one we saw in Spider-Man 2 was a scientist trying to create infinite energy and a tragic story. The regular Otto Octavius is more of a scientist, right? And we've played the the Spider-Man video game, right? That Otto, he's very like tech minded in terms of like, science being like a scientist. So if we can get a really sciencey Otto, that'd be great. But we're not gonna get the bowl haircut with the thick goggle glasses versions, Mike, like you mentioned. We're not getting nerdy Otto Octavius. We're getting hunky Otto Octavius.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a frat guy who got too drunk. He's hungover. He stumbles into the science department and he like thinks he's like picking up and putting his own backpack on, but no, it's like the tentacles from Doc Ock, and then he's just like whisked through his entire movie, not able to control these arms.
What? So I'm gonna give you two options, two actors here, and you tell me what you think. One, the main kid from High School Musical. What's his name now?
Zac Efron.
Zac Efron. Okay, gotta throw that out there. The other one is Jason Sudeikis.
Oh.
So I'm gonna throw two different ends of
funny.
this. So like, which one? So we've given Doc Ock. So okay, think about it. The next character we're gonna talk about that Sony is said they're gonna reboot and give us a new one is Mysterio. Recently played by Jake Gyllenhaal in Spider-Man: Far From Home. And I say recently. This is like what 2019. So we're 4 years out. Feels like forever, but it's not been that long. So if you were to pick one of those two actors, and this is just me picking two actors out of thin air here, which one you cast as which one? Zac Efron, Jason, which one would you do here?
I feel like you don't want to blow your chance of showing a shirtless character, and I feel like the shirtless character is more than likely going to be Doc Ock, so you got to put Efron in there.
Okay.
Put Sudeikis in as Mysterio. What a weird... These are two actors that don't need these jobs, but it's really funny to imagine me thinking that they're going to be in the MCU, and they're like, oh no, we signed the line for Sony. We didn't realize.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they have like a piece of tape over the title of the movie, and then once they signed it, they peeled the tape off and revealed what it really is, kind of thing.
No, so what bites Mysterio to make him magical?
A
Because
magician.
that's the magician.
A magician bites him, and he becomes, and he gets the power to talk to mirrors and smoke.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Mysterio, I think, is really cool. We didn't get a true Mysterio, right? In Far From Home, we got essentially an angry Tony Stark ex-employee who wants revenge. And is using drones for this stuff, and drones. It was great. It worked in the moment. He had the charisma of that character. But at the end of the day, Mysterio, I want to see some, like, we had that one scene where I had like the zombie Iron Man and the other like kind of trippy stuff. I want a lot more of that shit in this movie, Mike. I want like an absolutely like trippy, kind of like the Doctor Strange stuff too. Like, I want to really get wild and weird with this movie if they're going to do it.
Chris, you bring up a good point in a sense of they explained the power set of Mysterio in Spider-Man: Far From Home with this drone technology, and I feel like that maybe goes a little unappreciated, because I always harp on, if you're going to give somebody these otherworldly abilities, go take the effort to explain them. And they constructed this entire narrative around Jake Gyllenhaal's origin and being mad, and he's got to be mad at Tony Stark because he needs access to this very specific technology, and this technology makes sense in the sense of that it's Stark tech. So I like that they did all of that work, when maybe the more lazier route could have been like, well, we introduced magic with Doctor Strange, maybe somebody like stole a magic book and now they know magic or something like that. So I wish that there was more of that in the screenwriting going forward in the MCU. Like, don't just like rest on your laurels. Like, be creative, because that was a really, really fun turn in the movie, and that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have to go through kind of all of these, I don't want to call them hoops because it makes it seem like they're unnecessary, but if they didn't put the effort into figuring out a fun story.
Well, that also is a double-edged sword, because it relies you to watch everything beforehand when they're purposely trying to say you don't have to watch everything. It pays off for people, but yeah, I think but I guess the other thing is, if Sony's going to do Mysterio, I don't want it to be, as you mentioned, an identical thing, right? Someone who's relying on technology and stuff like that. So if they want to do like in the Sony universe, like, okay, maybe he is using magic, or like he's making deals with devils, or I'm making stuff up. It's maybe similar to, was it Spider-Man 2 game, where he has like the Mysterio portals, the Mysteriums, right? Where there's like trippy things kind of going. I don't know how it wasn't really magic, but it was also tech at the same time kind of deal. So like they could maybe do some of that. I don't know. I want them to just be different. I don't want them to be like, hey, we just changed.
Yeah, we
one
agree.
thing.
By a magician. That is the best way to make it as different as possible.
Exactly.
And the magician's got to be hot. Everyone's got to be hot and sexy. And that's all I'm looking for.
It's got to be funny. He's got to be funny though. Mysterio, I need a funny one. Octavius can be serious, but we need somebody funny in this universe.
Jason Biggs, the guy from American Pie.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm stubbing out Sudeikis for Biggs.
Another Jason. You just pick your Hollywood Jason. Because I think that's my concern is all these, like, we had Craven, Venom. Well, we have Craven, we have Venom, we have Madam Web. What's the other one I'm missing? Morbius. They're all serious fucking movies, man. Like, I don't need more anti-hero BS and then let's have a fun movie for once. Like, maybe like you mentioned, Jason, we harken back to 90s comedies, Mike, and make it like, gags. So I don't know. We'll see. We're not going to get anything we want out of these to begin with. So why are we even give them a chance? Lastly, we're going to switch into DC mode for a bit. James Gunn has shared that season 2 he's written half of it at this point, and this is the only other project besides pre-production for Superman Legacy he's working on at this time. So that, to me, number one, Peacemaker season 2, great. That means it's probably maybe a year and a half off, maybe summer 2025 as well. And that James Gunn is only working on this makes me feel a little better that he's not doing all the projects at DC right now.
This got to be a busy man. Really, truthfully, directing and writing is not supposed to be what his job is, right? He's supposed to be overseeing this universe. He's supposed to be reading things, giving notes, like meeting with casting directors, art departments and stuff like that. He's actually supposed to be doing so many other things. So I'm surprised he even gets any of this other stuff done as well. I'm actually curious to see what he puts his hands on after the Superman movie, right? Because I don't think it's a bad idea for him to maybe kick off this new version of the DC universe. You have a very seasoned, proven director and creator that's going to write and direct this Superman movie, really draw the line in the sand of where this universe is going to go. And then let's hire these other creatives and directors to come in and flesh it out. And I feel like once that starts, he's going to be a really, really busy guy. So I'm curious how often he will come back to direct and write things.
So I would say he's kind of doing what Jon Favreau did in a similar sense, right? Like, he came in, even though we give credit to the producers and people up above Marvel, but Jon Favreau came in, and I believe he worked with the writers and wrote and directed Iron Man 1. And Iron Man 1 has set the tone for the past 15 years at Marvel, right? Like that, if you watch Iron Man 1, nothing is outside of that realm, really, in terms of tone and character. So I agree, he has to, put his flag in sand. And obviously he can do it. Like, the movie doesn't have to be out for everyone else to work with him. He can show them what he's doing and going down that road to say, this is how this DCU will work. There's existing heroes, there's existing villains. We're not building it from day zero. So, hopefully that is great. Again, my qualms with James Gunn most of the time is he thinks he's funnier than he really is. Things drag on for a little too long, and the soundtrack is in your face. He's not like that all the time, but hopefully they're not all James Gunn-esque movies coming out of the DCU. They can do different ones based on who's writing and directing them, right? So hopefully he does I have no doubts he will do a great first Superman, and I have no doubts the people they have hired to work on this stuff will do other great things. It's just a lot riding on one property, though, right? Like, back when we didn't know what Iron Man was, and we didn't know it was like make or break a studio, it was way easier to watch that stuff and have a good time. But with all eyes on Superman and James Gunn, boy, I cannot imagine the pressure at this time for that. So, anything else you want to add to Superman Legacy? I'm gonna call it Legacy or Peacemaker. I've forgotten. Peacemaker was a good show, and it's been so long since I watched it. I've forgotten, most of those, most of it. Probably need to revisit that a little bit, but it's very, very fun. And then also, Again, firmly in the DC EU because it had Aquaman and the Flash. So we'll see what carries over in the new universe as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there's maybe some sort of super powered event or character that shows up that whisks Peacemaker off to the proper timeline, or maybe he'll just exist in his own weird little world for a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, they had aliens controlling most people on the planet at this point, Mike. So we'll see little dragonfly dudes, but I don't know. Well, that is the news for this week. If people want to know what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at, my friend?
Yes. Happy New Year, everyone. And you can read my webcomic at liferewardsrisk.com. Chris, people want to catch up with you. See all the fun little quirky TVs that you're buying. Where can they find
my
you?
TVs. You want to check up on my Digimon? I'll give you guys updates whenever I get my Digimon. You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or video games of the same name. If people know about what you're up to, what you're doing, where can they find you at? I'm sorry, where can they find us at? I already did you. We've got new episodes. It's a new year. We're entering our 10th year of this, Mike.
Chris is so sweet. He just wants to make sure people know what I'm doing at all times.
You're such an artist. You're such a
the best thing that you can
have
do.
it all.
Just head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the headquarters for everything we do here at the show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to find podcasts. Get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What are you excited about in the year of 2024? Let us know. We want to know what's on your radar so we can put it on our radars if it's not already there, because Chris has everything on his radar all the time anyway. I would be surprised. So here's the ask. Try to surprise Chris.
Yeah.
Can you think of something that he doesn't already know about that's happening in 2024? And then if you want to be a super fan, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we'll be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.